crazy mother.
Hello, everyone. Nicholas Nat coming at you with another episode from the NattFitness Method. I'm excited because, as many of you know, the NattFitness Method is really about innovating your life and taking it to the next level. So if you consider yourself an evangelist for stepping up in life, figuring out how to innovate and overcome problems, and finding out tit for tat what are the best strategies to take your life from A, where you are, to B, where you want to go, then you are tuned into the right place and you will not be disappointed with our guest today. So
hi, everybody.
I am excited. She's already ready to talk. She's ready to go. She's ready to go. I am so excited because I had a chance to connect with this individual as a fellow entrepreneur, especially in fitness, but not only in multiple streams of income. It's easy to understand not only why she's been able to be successful in not one, two, but over 3 different businesses. She grew up and was really pushed, like many of us, to be in a position where we understand the outside or the exterior of success. Quickly discovering that outside success doesn't actually reflect internal validation. She was able to go to work, find out exactly what was important to her. And in doing so, she opened up a Pure Barre out here in Denver, Colorado, or in Lakewood, Colorado, as I should actually say. But in addition to that, she also has been an attorney, and she has opened up one of the most transformational organizations out here in self-development, Designingly You. So I'm so excited to introduce our guest for the day to get so much perspective, Kristen Baylis. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're ready to fly in. You're ready to talk. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to fly in.
Oh my gosh, connecting with humans.
Exactly. You're just like, you're going to reach over and grab them, right? You grew up Midwest, Michigan. Pretty close upbringing with your family. Talk to us about, growing up in your household and what that was like, especially with what was, represented around you as far as success and being a part of success.
Yeah, so I grew up in Michigan. I only lived there right until before 5th grade, but my accent, people tell me, is still very Michigan. So grew up in Clarkston, Michigan. My dad and mom both come from huge families. So my dad was one of 9 and my mom's one of 8. And all of my grandparents are immigrants, so from Italy and Lebanon and also Russia. So it's interesting growing up with people that are newer to America, and the idea of success really through education was drilled into me at a very young age, which I'm very grateful for. So had a lot of successful people, aunts and uncles, my dad and my mom. And also one thing I'm really grateful for is, I don't know, have you ever read The 5 Love Languages?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Well, it tells you different ways that people experience love. And one of the ways is words of affirmation, saying oh my gosh, this is such a great podcast or whatever it is. Uh-huh. And I'm lucky that I grew up with a family that's very big into that, because that's actually my love language. So my dad would just say you're so smart, you're so strong, look at that, look at your shoulders, just funny things. But it's funny how when you start as a kid with being fed positivity, and telling you you're smart, telling you you can do anything, how that really, really shaped who I am today.
Awesome. Yeah. I like it. I like the love. It's easy to understand that. It's easy to see that you had a very, what a lot of people classify as an advantage, right? You had both parents in your life. You were able to connect. Your dad was extremely inspirational. I think that's important for everyone, but especially women, with that strong father figure relationship. And so things went from there. Obviously you went to school, you went to North Carolina, right? South Carolina, yep. Columbia, right? And so you're in school, and you are beginning to have these different thoughts. I don't know if that happened in school or after school. So talk to us about that in terms of, your thought process for being intrigued in something that wasn't necessarily what you want to spend your life doing. And that conflict between, being, what you went to school for, an attorney, versus having a passion, a conviction to do so much more, do something different with your life?
Yeah, so I think I really am grateful to grow up with a lot of role models. I only had my dad for a short time. He did pass when I was young. And then we moved to South Carolina, and that's how I ended up going to South Carolina for undergrad and law school. And what I witnessed was I was a very I'd consider myself to be like a logical person who wants to know like, okay, how do I get to A to B to C? So for me, I always was like, okay, I'm going to look around and see what success looks like and try to emulate that. So everyone that I knew that was quote unquote successful, it was through education, through hard work. And so I took those like external things that I was seeing. And I think a lot of us do this. And that's how I define success. So for me, it was like, okay, if you get good grades, and because I was surrounded by so many people that exceeded, and excelled academically, that's how I define success. So do well in school, go as far as you can in school, get as many degrees as you can. And I still would tell a young person, yes, this is part of success. But the key that I kind of missed was this is just part of success. This is just a part of it. And that if you're not working on the inside, and if it's not really in alignment with who you are, like why you're here on this earth, then none of those external things really matter. And so I think I was someone that chased external success through good grades and scholarships and going to law school, getting a great legal job. And I'm still very thankful for that. I'm not downplaying any of that. But it took me really until my late 20s to really ask myself, okay, I have all these external things, but deep down, I don't really feel that happy. Like, I don't really feel that fulfilled. And is this all that life is? Like, is it? And that was really what began my journey of realizing that I was right about some things about success, but I was really, really wrong about some things about it. And that is my mission, is to help people discover really like what is success for them on a spiritual internal level.
So I love that. I love that, you have this upbringing and this background, and so many things are being spoken and said that, this is how you go through, and you went through that traditional process, as so many of us, especially being, millennials, have been taught, and the even younger generations after that. And it's, the traditional baby boomer demographic. You go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, you build retirement, you retire, you go experience and enjoy the world. And, you have some thoughts about that, because you're like, why wait? Why wait to be happy? And so, you really had a very different approach that you wanted to adopt. And from there, you decided to make some changes. So I know you were saying you were about 27, I want to say.
26, 27 is when I really started digging into how could I have all these successes, but not feel fulfilled. And I started getting into the world of personal development, self-help. Me before thought that was like, I didn't need that. And I think that's another message I want to spread is there's an ego side of a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't need self-help. Like, are you kidding me? I'm successful. Or even after my dad passed away and I was a kid, people were like, should you go to counseling or therapy for this? And I was like, I don't need that. And it was almost like this ego reaction that like, I'm too good for that, which is so wrong. No one needed it more than me of needing to look inside and develop that side of me. And so if there is anybody, listening or watching, and you feel like you're too good for self-help or personal development, I just really, really challenge you to take a look at like, what are you pretending not to know, or what are you hiding from yourself? Because usually that's a sign that there's something you don't want to look at.
Well, I think that's a wonderful point. Growing up, and being avid into sports, because my dad was a professional ball player, the kind of typical message vicariously, because, I was the baby of four. And so I watched my brother and, play with his friends outside and other kids and older kids in school. And it's kind of like, as a man, it's like, you don't cry, you rub some dirt in it. And so you quickly begin through that process to kind of not necessarily care what others think, but you don't want to be judged publicly. And so I think a lot of people also adopt that, where they're like, well, if I go get self-development, does that mean that, my life is in shambles, or that I don't have my stuff together? in your case, I'm not going to see therapy. People are going to think that I'm, going through something. And again, we would never think that about ourselves had you, gotten hurt, had you fell and hurt your knee. People would be like, no, like clearly you need medical attention, because if you don't, it is going to heal, but you're going to be in a lot of pain. You're going to have to deal with this the rest of your life. And somehow there seems to be this disconnect that emotions or spirituality is very different, and you submerge that, right? You press it down, you tuck it in, and it just kind of goes away. And I think a lot of times people misrepresent that. So we'll get over that here in a second, because I feel like we could go on about self-development. You and I could go on and on about that. So, at this point, you have made a very fine decision that you're going to go and step into the entrepreneurial world. Talk to me about what that felt like for you to go and actually take the step of doing something that was non-traditional, when your lineage, your history, and what you've done up to this point has all been textbook, it's been paramount. Talk to me about, how that felt for you, and talk to me about the perspective of other people in your community and what they thought about you for, jumping ship on the dream that you basically built.
Right. So it took a little while. I'd say anytime you're trying to build confidence, if you're thinking about starting a business or whatever, start small, anywhere you can build confidence slowly if you need to do it that way. And so one of the first things I did is I moved to Denver. I didn't know a soul out here. My husband's originally from here, but he was living in Charleston, South Carolina with me at the time. And I felt like for me, that was a big step to say, I'm going to go to a brand new community, meet all new friends, completely restart my career, like my legal career. And that was the first step in taking a risk. So sometimes lawyers are like people that are like the A students. We can be very risk averse type people. And we want to do things like, well, I've already done this and now I have a house, and step A, step B. And so selling my house, leaving my amazing old law firm and joining a new law firm and moving was step one. And I think that was me starting to feel confident that I can do new things. And then opening the fitness studio was really step two. Luckily, the law firm I work for and the lawyers I work with are very, very supportive. They have an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I'm really, really grateful for that. But some lawyers, and not even really lawyers at my firm, but just some people were like shocked. Why would you leave? You've been practicing law, You clerked for a judge, and then you spent all this time practicing employment law. Now you're going to leave and open a fitness studio. And so I think it was there were some people that were super supportive and almost like, oh, I want to do something like that. You're inspiring me to, follow a passion. And then there's some people who just, I think, were shocked that like you would get off the track. Like, you're on a track and it's a good track. Why would you get off that? And so I had a little bit of a mixed reaction, but I'd say overwhelmingly supportive and positive. Maybe that's just what they said to my face, but I do think I was lucky enough to have a lot of support, especially from the people that I really care about and love the most.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I think that's always the consensus, right? Like, we hear this all the time. I can't go do this. My parents say not to pursue this one thing because there's no money in it, right? And I think as a whole, you have to consider the extreme of both sides. You cannot say, acknowledging one side, that my parents don't get it and they don't understand me, because as a whole, especially with immigrant, blood, they want to see success. You're compromised and sacrificed so much just to bring yourself over here in the States. Again, my parents weren't immigrants, but they were born in the late 50s during the civil rights movement. At the time, Blacks weren't allowed to have an education formally. And so they put a lot of pressure on that for my mom growing up in that time. That was the answer. And so that really became, the paradigm for her that set trend. And it was great because, she instilled in us that education is important. She instilled that, being open is important, being able to articulate your thoughts. But simultaneously, that became a conflict, because the other side is always that you have to do what's safe. And what we're finding out now is that that's not the case. There is no safety or no safety net, right? We're always in this position. So I like that. Now you personally, you opened up Pure Barre, and then you started another organization Fill me in about that, because
Yeah.
you
So
really believe in multiple streams of income. So part of that is based on your conviction and passion behind what you're doing, but another part of it is because you don't want to be obliged to just one thing that is, generating some form of income or profit. And if that ship happens to sink, you don't want to be without. So talk to me about that a little bit.
yeah, so I definitely started. So I still practice law part-time, and then I opened the fitness studio, and I do these things. I guess like you said, the intention is not started with, oh, I want multiple streams of income. Although now that I'm like, oh my God, I'm thankful I have that, and that is something I want to continue to grow. But I definitely do follow the passion and the thing that's calling me. And so when I started my fitness studio, what I realized is, first of all, I think fitness is one of the top ways. If you want to transform your life, start with fitness, because when you build that confidence every day in the little things that your body can do, just in the hour that you work out or whatever it is, it makes huge changes. But what happens is, let's say someone is not living on autopilot, whatever they're doing, they're not super happy, and then they start with fitness. A lot of times when they start seeing these changes on the outside, they want to start making changes on the inside too. And so people would come and talk to me and say, oh my gosh, I'm inspired how you open the studio. Can you tell me more about that? I have a business idea. Can you meet me for coffee? And can I pick your brain? And so I was noticing that a lot of people were looking to me more for help on the mindfulness side and on the business side than solely on fitness and teaching them bar fitness. And so I started Designedly Living. It's been about 2 years now. The idea, it's so funny, I bought the website in 2011. So the idea has always been there. But once I opened the fitness studio, I think I saw the need more, because I talked to real people that were like, we need this. And so through that company, I host retreats. Right now I'm actually in a virtual retreat series where we do 90 minutes once a week with a small group. We have 30 people going through it. So that is my true passion. If I had to only pick one thing, helping people start changing their life just by their thoughts is, I feel like, why I was put on this planet.
I love that. I like that you said so much in that short period of time, and I hope everyone gravitated that, because you still worked full time while building your dream part time, and slowly, obviously now I know that you are primarily an entrepreneur, but at the time, you had to make sure that you're able to pay bills and slowly able to gravitate. So that's more of a a build and steady state, because there's a lot of different options. And I think a lot of people fear entrepreneurism because, they hear the stories about the all-in method, and there's nothing obviously against that, but a lot of times that can be intimidating for somebody who's got, roots. They have a mortgage, they have a family they're having to take care of. And so it's not just them or being able to dig and uproot, because you're risking all of that. And in addition to that, you talked a lot about the fact that you have such a strong passion, since 2011 for your website, for Designedly Living. In that time when you're really focusing on being a student, you're still a student and a teacher now, but at this time, and then obviously you still want to focus on fitness. And so both of those are passions. Both of those are very, definitive things that you care about authentically. It's not that, that couldn't be a seed, or that wasn't given, but it is authentically you. And some part of your life will always be wrapped around helping people. Some point of your life will always be wrapped around health and fitness, or sharing that information. So I think that that's an important note, because so many people, whether they're talking about a career or they're talking about, becoming an entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur, I think that they always think first from the outside looking in instead of the inside looking out. Right. And it's always about the money, or it's always about the accolades or the prestige, right? And people really don't go to ask themselves the important question, which is, what is it that I want to be a contributor for? Right. Or what is my purpose? Or what is it that I could, do every day and never make money in, right? So we hear that constantly, but I think a lot of people don't get that. And my hypothesis, just from what I've seen, is that people are going to end up right where you were. You were in a precipice of something beginning, right? And you decided to jump ship and do something a little bit different and build a life. But I think a lot of people who could go into entrepreneurship, that go for the money and don't necessarily curate something that's passionate, they could or could not be successful, but ultimately, regardless of whatever their bank account reflects, they're not going to be fulfilled. And
I
that's
agree.
kind of your message. That's kind of your message.
Right. I think you definitely need to pick something that you have a skill at. And so all the things that I do, from law to teaching, require kind of the same skill. And so if you have to be good at something, so don't, just think you can only have passion. But if you combine that with passion,
You mean I can't sing? I can't just become a
I can't
singer?
sing. And so I'm a horrible singer. So I think it's important to recognize, yes, you should look at what you're good at, what your skills are. And then if you can combine that with passion, that it's the passion that makes it never feel like work. And so I think, like, even during this coronavirus thing, I do think some people have been taken off autopilot and realize, oh my God, I'm happier now because I hate my job. But I love my job. I love, love, love my jobs. And so there's a subset of us that are lucky, and I consider that an absolute privilege to love my job. But you realize that's what the goal is. So when you have that passion, it doesn't feel like work. You don't want time off. I have to be pried away. And my husband will say, no work today. Like, we're just gonna, hang out together, make dinner. And I'm glad that he's that voice of saying, like, pull me away from it, because it's not a 9 to 5 for me. It's really a life. And I think when you have passion for something, that's what enables you to really, like, chase it. And you're not chasing dollars. You're chasing the true thing that you're trying to accomplish, the true passion that you have.
Not punching out a clock and looking at your watch and counting your vacation days, and it's 100%. Just the mission is go. The mission is go.
It's such a privilege. And what I would say is to people, in the meantime, yes, if you're like 21 and you can live in your parents' basement, and you want to start a business, that's awesome. You don't have as much to lose in terms of supporting a family or a house or whatever. But if you're, never think that you're too old or too far along to chase a dream in entrepreneurship, because I kept my day job, and you can keep your day job. If you're passionate about something, everyone has the same amount of hours in the day. And so if you want to do something at night or on the weekends to create passion, I'd say do it. And the other thing is, in the meantime, whatever your day job is, find passion there too. Because what sometimes people do is they have an idea for a business and they're so excited about it. And then what they do is they make themselves miserable in their day job, because the whole day they're like, oh, I don't want to be here. I want to be doing this. Right. But if you can find the joy wherever you are in that moment, then you can carry that. I think that's going to bring so much more momentum for what you want to do. And so don't hate on what you got. Find ways to appreciate it. Because I employ people and I'm an employee, where I'm an employee, I'm always like, thank you so much for employing me. Like, I am so appreciative now. Even if they just take me to lunch, I'm like, thank you so much, because now I can see the other side of being an employer. And so wherever you are in now, I'm saying find appreciation there, find passion there, and then develop those other things. You can totally keep your day job and still chase passion.
I love that. It's a big message, especially about people checking out. You obviously want to be the elite and be the best at what it is you're doing, and how you do anything is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to check out and it's not the most romantic time, then it's just what it is. And a lot of times people are taking those jobs or a side job, right, just to be able to pay bills, have a little extra money. But your message is, build your energy up and sustain that energy in everything that you're doing, because it's going to serve you much more long term. And don't be so compartmentalized in your energy, like, oh, well, in fitness, I go balls to the wall. But when it comes to home and work, I'd rather be training. You got to have that basis. And so I like that. So, I really like, what you're talking about, regarding fitness as a whole, right? And we had this conversation, and I think that, in self-development in and of itself, so many people really begin to think that self-development is really built from the outside in. Can you memorize quotes? Can you become familiar with the pioneers who've laid the foundation? And, it's a quote unquote like a religion, right? Yeah. And the reality is, self-development really teaches you about how you can become a contributor. It's really about service, right? And it's really about going inside and not saying that I'm a messed up person, but it's understanding the nature of whatever it is that we have as people that have built us, you know, that the building blocks. Do we want to shift those?
Right.
You know, it's that emotional, it's that physical. And so for you, one of your passions that built or that you cultivated around fitness was really born out of something that wasn't the most exciting thing. And that was because you had scoliosis.
Right.
And from there, you started obviously working on that, as most people would, because you were in high school, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how did this overall passion for fitness, which eventually now is your business and you spend your life helping people transform, how did all that get started out of you being a high school student with scoliosis?
Yeah. So, and one thing that this reminds me of in terms of fitness and self-development, for me, this is where it all starts. Taking 100% responsibility for your life. That changes everything. And so when I was in high school and the doctors told me that I was like 1 degree away from having to wear a brace, just as like a vain, high school kid, to me, I didn't even care about the medical side. I was just like, oh my God, the brace is gonna like ruin my outfit. But what the doctor said is if you can strengthen your core, you have a high chance that this isn't gonna get worse, because if you strengthen the muscles around your spine, you can help keep it in place. And so 100%, I have to admit, it came from a vanity. I wanted to avoid the brace at all costs and surgery. And so I just started doing low impact workouts. So I ran track and stuff in high school, but I have to really stick to low impact now, especially because of my scoliosis. And so I started doing all sorts of low impact workouts. At that time, Pure Barre didn't exist, and not in South Carolina at least. And I was able to completely eliminate all back pain. Even today, I have zero back pain. My scoliosis, if you saw me, you'd see the curvature in the spine. But really what I did, and took responsibility for doing the things within my control. Some things are outside of our control. Everything that happens to you is not your fault. But what can you do? How can you respond to whatever it is you're facing? What is within your control and what can you change? And so fitness for me was a way to control this. Hey, for me, scoliosis, it wasn't the worst thing ever, but I definitely eliminated something that could have gotten much worse through fitness. And that's why I'm so passionate about it.
I like it. I like that, you find a way eventually, and we all have that, right? So when people come in and they see me, for instance, whether they're working in my facility or whatever it is, I say superficial, not in the way that it is superficial because you should be embarrassed and you should look down on yourself. But we say superficial in the essence of it is not deep. It doesn't, right. It's not sub, it's not deep, it's not below the surface, it's on the surface, right? And so when we say superficial, people usually have a goal. I want to look good, and that's my primary initiation and my focus, right? The issue with that, at least the way that I found or I've experienced it, is that usually that strong reason over time begins to diminish. And when you have your days, those days where you're like, listen, it's snowing, I'm not getting out of bed, I'm sore, I'm mad at the world, I'm mad at, whoever it is, it's less motivating, and you usually need something that is compelling, that is strong, that you can not rely on your pure sentiment emotionally, but you can dig in and try to manifest or incorporate whatever that actual resilience is that's going to allow you to persevere and eventually get on top of it. Okay, so I do like that. I like that, you go around and basically you help other people, and a lot of those people probably come in for the exact same reasons on the surface, but it isn't until you actually get into fitness and you begin to see the work effect and everything that it brings, whether it's the relationships with the people in the community, whether it's being a part of the community itself, but it's really just the overall change. And so something that you like to classify, Kristen, is that you think fitness is the initiation of the ripple effect. Talk to me about the ripple effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I just noticed for me personally that when I'm focused on fitness, even if it's just staying consistent with 3 to 5 workouts a week, it doesn't even have to be extreme. Everything else in my life is better. My relationship's better with my husband, my relationship with my friends better, my work ethic's better, my energy throughout the day is higher and like at a more equal level. And I notice it with my customers. They come in, whatever goal it is, and when they finally form the habit, and it is a habit of working out and fitness in their life, everything else starts to change. And it's all because of this time that they just invested in themselves. Fitness is 70 to 80% mental, I think. So if you can, like you said, find that thing that keeps you going, and vanity, looking good in a bathing suit for vacation is never going to keep you long-term into fitness.
Sure.
For me, it's being 80 or 90 years old and still being really healthy and able to walk without any assistance. So like for me, I try to think, man, I want to be like my grandpa who's 92 and can go to Disney World and walk for 10 hours. And so when I think like that, that's what gets me to get there. So find whatever it is. And then when you actually are consistent and you can make a 30-day habit or whatever it is, you'll notice all the other parts of your life are better, including what you eat. I think we were talking the other day, like when you spend that time, it's really hard to eat bad when you just spent time and money on a workout. And so just try one little thing. Let's work out 4 times a week and watch how everything else in your life starts to also improve.
I love it. I love it. I love, what you mentioned about obviously just how much fitness really impacts every part of your life. It's not just the physical, it's going to have a compound effect in general. And, what you eat is really going to do the exact same thing. We talked about that basically, the overall foundation of the foods that you eat and what the nutrients end up doing to the gut, how they make you feel, whether that's being detoxed or that's being inflamed, right? And so there's so many different avenues to that. And as a whole, I love that your vision for fitness, but not just everything else, but especially fitness, is very futuristic. It's very out in the future. It's not just, again, like a lot of superficial, I want it right here. There's nothing wrong with big arms, chest, or wanting to lose weight, or wanting to be in that bikini, or wanting, that stuff. But again, is right now in your age, you're not going to think about that when you're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, right?
It won't keep you going. It might get you there to begin with.
Right.
But when the times get hard and the vacation's over and whatever it is, and I do tend to notice, because now I'm almost been open 3 years, my customers that are really consistent, they never go at crazy. They're not 7-day-a-week people, but they're good. They're 4 to 5. They're consistent, whether it's rainy and cold or sunny and nice. Those are the people that really have the best results, because their goal is not short term. It's a lifestyle. It's a complete thing that they want to exist for many, many years, and not just for an upcoming superficial thing.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
well, you hit on you hit on the head, and everything you're saying is true. If you start out pacing yourself and you slowly innovate, then the better. And if you are all about the result and you just think that you can sprint there, you're gonna get washed out. Okay, so let's shift gears here for just a second, because I want to know, you said something incredibly powerful. As you know, we are in a pandemic, 2020. There is no single person on the face of the planet that is not affected by this in some way. Obviously, here in the States, different states, even parts of different cities of a state have different rules and regulations, but most people are at home in quarantine. Being a fitness entrepreneur, your business is closed, as is mine. So, it's very funny, because generally when you think about the coronavirus and, you see this split, you see this starting divide now. I think this is almost 7 weeks, might even be going into 8 now, since quarantine started here in Colorado. But you tend to see this split of people who are very adamant about staying at home and as much protection in all cases. We need to protect lives and save lives, and the economy can wait. And then on the other side, you have a lot of people who are very conscientious of what's going on behind the pandemic and how we need to protect people. But at the end of the day, their livelihood is definitely being affected, and they're ready for it to open back up. And it's rare. There's not really this middle ground. It's really split, right? And in addition to that, there's this fear. Right, Kristen? And I think initially when it happened, we didn't know much about it. It just happened, and all of a sudden businesses are closing and people are working from home, and it's like there's no toilet paper, there's no hand sanitizer. People are just like run that off the shelf. And so all this stuff is beginning to happen. And your mantra is there's always choice. You can choose bitterness or you can choose gratitude. So like that is very eclectic. It's very different because fear and again, anger, resentment, frustration, a lot of stuff happens on both sides, which I think voluntarily push people, you know, to either side. But I'm curious as to why you came up with that philosophy and how coronavirus has affected you or your family.
Yeah, so I think as a business owner, and you know, we all approach all of life through our own set of lenses. And maybe because I'm a small business owner, I'm on one side or the other. You know, if I was talking to my grandpa who's 92, he's got a whole different lens that he's seeing this through. And so first, I think when we talk about the coronavirus, it's just good to all be on the same page that of course we all have different lenses. And of course, no one wants anybody to die unnecessarily. And I think we need to start with that assumption that people have good intentions, that people do want the best, and that of course we're approaching it with different lenses. And that all being said, I had a day where I was just feeling like, God, everything I've worked for the past 3 years, you know, not paying myself for years, reinvesting everything into my employees in the business, putting my heart into that business, I felt like was just taken from me. And that could sound spoiled because I know some people are like, yeah, but my grandpa was taken from me. So I'm not trying to equate a business to someone losing someone from this. But as a business owner, I felt a little bit bitter at first. Like all the progress I've had has come to a screeching halt. And when I do reopen, it's kind of going to be like reopening a business. And I put 3 years into not being a new business. And then it just hit me as like, I can choose to start building this bitterness towards the situation, towards the government, whatever it is. Or I can choose to be grateful for the things I have, the employees that are sticking with me, the members that are sticking with me, the virtual classes we offer on Facebook Live, the fact that I have a house to quarantine in. And so as soon as I just started thinking of all the things that I'm grateful for, I noticed that bitterness came way down. And whatever your situation is, some people could be feeling this from the other side. Maybe they have a pre-existing condition and they're at risk and they're feeling bitter that people are, you know, advocating for going out and running. And they're saying, well, it's easy for you to say, but I'm, you know, severely at risk and you're just worried about going on a run. Whatever your situation is, if we can all work to make sure that we're just grateful we have, take down the bitterness and then assume good intentions, I feel like we can find some middle ground, and it doesn't have to be so extreme. But I do think even if we don't find any middle ground, just for my own sanity, choosing gratitude over bitterness is what I think is going to get me through this. And then asking the question, well, what if this actually can make me better? What if this actually is a good thing for my business? And trying to open my mind to the fact that like, this doesn't have to go down a negative road. It's my choice.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. I like how very intentional and mindful you outlined a lot of the emotions on both sides. You know, you're not just sitting here talking on one side about, you know, my business owner and these are what's happening, because that's easy. I hate to say it, but it is. It's easy. There's a lot of businesses out there. There's a lot of people like myself and other individuals who are like, yeah, I'm hurt too. Open up the economy, right? And so, you know, being 32, bodybuilder, you know, my health is not really in question. Whereas I do have clients, and there have even been some people on social media this week, you know, who are coming from different positions, whether they have a pre-existing condition, whether they've had some form of surgery or something that ultimately just creates volatility in their life, and they don't have that conventional immune system that is going to defend about that. And that's assuming they're even healthy, and it's still just a different percentage, right? So I like that you chose everybody and acknowledged it, but ultimately you're talking about this silver lining, if I could say that word, in the way that people choose to accept other people's stance and how there's kind of this compromise, because that's a big part of it, is that, you know, we're kind of left in the dark. We're only told a certain amount of information
Right.
until there's a ban lifted and it just extends, right? And so there's this huge shift of it. And so not only do you like this for you, and this is your perspective, but you actually have an additional perspective for a lot of other people, right? And so you're going in and you're talking about the fact that people, especially in our technological day and age, are just on like this hamster wheel, and they're just going, and they're just going, right? And so the fact that the world is on pause creates an opportunity, not for sure, but at least an opportunity for people to have a very different approach and a very different sentiment or mindset during this time. So fill me in about what exactly it is that you're thinking, talking about this being something that could be a positive or proactive opportunity for people when they may be really frustrated.
Right. So one of the people that I admire so much is Jack Canfield. He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's someone I love.
That's Principles, one of my favorite books.
Yeah, I love him. And one of the things he says is, one of his big principles is E plus R equals O. And it's event plus response equals outcome. And so in coronavirus, we can't change this event. You know, we can have opinions, we can raise our voices, but the event happened. Like you said, we're 7 weeks in or whatever we are. It's your response that is going to determine the outcome. People are going to come out of this better than they've ever been. And I'm not saying from a monetary standpoint, I'm talking about solely internally, or worse than they've ever been. And it is going to depend on their response. And so I'm not saying that the event is good. Let's be neutral about the event, but we can make it a good thing by responding to it in a way of seeing opportunity. And so by saying, wow, to have this time at home, to be forced to think about what's going right and what's going wrong in your world, use this to get off autopilot. If that's the only thing you do. If you are dreading going back to work, start asking yourself why you're dreading it, because there's something else going on. You know, if you're dreading whatever it is, if you're having a really hard time at home with your family or your relationship, this is forcing you to get off whatever autopilot you were on in that relationship and really address the issues. And so I do think that is an opportunity for all of us, because we were forced out of whatever routines we had, to kind of question, what do we really want to go back to? And what do we want it to look like when we go back to? And where can I make tweaks in my life? I mean, it can be little things or it can be huge. You could be at home thinking, I'm dreading my job so much. This is a wake up sign. I need to get on a new path. I need to get on a new career, whatever it is. It could be little things. Like, we used to eat out way too much. And now it's nice to see, like, wow, we can cook, save a bunch of money, eat really healthy. And so those are little tweaks that I'm thankful for this opportunity, because I do think this is something we'll stick with going forward. So whatever autopilot you're on, use this break, if you can do anything, to get off and examine your life and make some changes for when you do go back.
I love it. I love it. And I think the part that sticks out the most is for people who might be in a position that are wavering. There's something that you don't like. Well, at the end of the day, that is feedback, right?
Right.
That is it's a signal. And if you're having a signal and, like you said, you're on autopilot and it's just being put on the back burner because you can exist, now you have this expression. I know you use Jack Canfield's quote, event plus response equals outcome, or at least, he coined it, and it's very popular. There's one, I think that, I don't know if Tony Robbins said this or if this came from someone else, but I remember hearing it when I heard him speak, and he said that pressure doesn't create weakness, pressure reveals it. So if you have this coronavirus that just all of a sudden is on top of your life, then that thing that you were putting off to the side, and if that's an Achilles heel, all of a sudden it is like in your face, right? And there's a signal. I don't like this. I don't like the way this feels. Or maybe there's even something that happened within the coronavirus. I'm finding myself eating a lot more, or I'm frustrated, or I'm gaining a lot of weight, or, my spouse is just like in my ear, or the kids are driving me crazy, whatever that actually is, right? I think that it's so easy to put yourself kind of in this, jar and just say, this is what it is, and I accept it. Basically, what you're saying is complete opposite. You're encouraging people to have the bravery, the courage, not to deny, but to accept. If there is a signal coming from this pressure, acknowledge it, discover it, talk it, open, and then evaluate what can be done. But it takes a level of open-mindedness, and you really have to have a will, whether that will is born out of just, I want this pain to go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually everything else will kick in, and that's, a very tentative term that I'm used, but the methodology and the principle being that, people really need to open up, people really need to be transparent with themselves, and this is the time to evoke change, and if not, what are we doing, right?
100%.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we are almost out of time, but before we go, I wanted to get a chance to ask you a couple other things. First and foremost, I want to know, where can everybody connect with you? Where can they connect with your organizations and find out more about, everything that you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm most present on Instagram. So at Designedly. So if you just spell design and then add EDLY, Designedly Living. Also designedlyliving.com. And I really try to post the most up-to-date stuff, like on my Instagram stories. And then also my website lists everything about upcoming retreats. They've all moved to virtual retreats, but we're still doing them. We're actually hosting a series that starts Thursday this week, but every single week. And it's only $20 a call for 90 minutes, which is really fun. I'm doing it with my coach, Shoshana French. So it's going to be really fun. We're going to dive into intuition. That's where to find me. And then my studio is Pure Bar Belmar on Instagram, and also purebar.com.
I love it. Wonderful. Obviously, we'll have some of this looped below, so you guys will definitely be able to connect with Kristen and ask her personally. Kristen, my last question is very simple, but before I ask you that question, I want to take this time to acknowledge you. I want to take the time to acknowledge your servitude to a society, to mankind, and to take lessons in a very powerful and a very proactive way and try to give that back, to try to help other people. And even your businesses, you're living proof of somebody who is not willing to settle, because there's callings out there in the world, and you're really not only genuine at being able to do that from multiple angles, but also very educated, and you've chosen not to just parade on yourself, but also to give back to others. And for that, I think it's very awesome. I think it's a great thing that you're doing. So I want to acknowledge you for coming on the show and being transparent and sharing your thoughts and strategies about how you cultivated your life, and hopefully people can take some of these things.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My last question, which is a pretty unique one, but I figure, on the spot, you're really good.
No, I'm nervous. Okay.
Given a minute and a platform to the world, everybody in the world can hear you, and it's translated in their language. What is the message in 1 minute that you would stand on a platform conveying to the world? What would you say?
If I had to pick one message, well, now it's going to be two, but it's two. One is, you got to realize your own mortality. And maybe this coronavirus is part of that, but we're here. Maybe we have multiple lives. We don't know what happens after this. We have one life. And so to live on autopilot and to just live in a reactive state, to me, is a waste of all the gifts and all the time that you have to really, really live life to the fullest. And so realize that your thoughts create your reality. It starts in here. And when you work on that side of yourself, everything else in your life can change. And so just refuse to live by the old adage of like, this just is the way it is, and this is just gonna suck and I have to deal with it. No, it does not have to be. And it does not have to just be that way. You have the power to change your life, and start with your own thoughts. Start with your own mind and take responsibility for your life.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that message, Kristen. Again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank
it's
you
been
so
a privilege
much for
having you. Absolutely. Guys, ladies, I hope that you guys have definitely been able to marvel in some of the things that Kristen has done. By no means has the journey she walked been easy, but by step and just over a very short period of time, you can understand that you can do certain things with your life and it's never too late. Hopefully adopting some of these philosophies and actually putting them into action, you can begin to see some of these transformations in the coronavirus, during the pandemic, and especially afterwards. And so that's our time. I'm your host, Nicholas Natt, signing off. If you guys would not mind, please go check out our podcast on Apple iTunes, as well as on Spotify and Google Play Music. Rate, review, and share this message with somebody who needs to hear it. That's our time. Nicholas Natt with Kristen Baylis, signing off.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.